I would like to invite Dilip Mohapatra, Gopal Lahiri, Urna Bose, Nisha Luthra, Jagdev, and Mahua Sen as the moderator. And the topic for the panel discussion is literature in digital world. Let's give a big round of applause to all the speakers and the moderator.
Well, thank you so much for being a part of this session. And we'll be talking about literature in the digital world. First of all, I'll take the privilege to introduce my distinguished panel. So, Gopal Lahiri sir, to my right, is an Indian-based bilingual poet, critic, editor, writer, and translator. His poems are translated in 16 languages and published in 12 countries. He has been nominated for Pushkar Prize for Poetry in 2021, besides many other awards and recognitions. Welcome to the session, sir. To my left is Mr. Dilip Mohapatra, who is a decorated Navy veteran. He is a well-acclaimed poet in contemporary English, and his poems appear in many literary journals and anthologies worldwide. He has 6 poetry collections, 1 short story collection, and 2 professional books to his credit so far, all published by Authors Row. Welcome to this session, sir. To the extreme right, I have Mrs. Nisha, Luthra, who is an actor, art director, poet, playwright, and passionate artist. Working as the founder and director of the Narrators, a performing arts society, India, and also holding the seat of head India for Leinster School of Music. Leinster School of Music and Drama in Ireland. Then I have with me, to my extreme left, Sir Jagdev, who is a writer, IT entrepreneur, researcher, academic, and the president of Udaygiri Foundation, a non-profit which works to preserve and popularize our heritage, art, culture, language, and literature through the new digital media. Recite World and Heritage Walk Online are their initiatives. Welcome to this session, sir. Then I have with me Urna Bose, who is an advertising professional, writer, poet, and editor. Her poetry has gone viral globally. Welcome to this session, Urna. So, we are discussing literature in the digital world. As Boris Pasternak has said, literature is the art of discovering something extraordinary about ordinary people and saying in ordinary words something extraordinary. Literature takes us to places, it makes us meet people, it makes us, live moments, live events, and it makes us connect with people and share their joys and sorrows. It also, I think, it takes a lot to acquire that kind of profound wisdom as a single book of literary merit can instill in us. Literature is, the mirror of the society and its mannerism, and we have seen it through our books that we have read, like Hard Times, if I talk about. Charles Dickens has very vividly portrayed the Victorian England, ill effects of the Industrial Revolution, then the mercenary instincts of human being and the fragmented relationships, so on and so forth. So by reading one single book, Hard Times, we kind of get a glimpse of the hard times of Victorian England. Similarly, in Pride and Prejudice, we have seen Jane Austen portraying an entire, England of 19th century. How England resisted French Revolution of its own. I mean, though revolution and war are not very vividly, written in the book, but we know, through situations and characters, how beautifully, Jane Austen has portrayed 19th century England through, Mr. and Mrs. Bennet's wedding and the rise of Colin's fall of, Catherine, so on and so forth. And even in poems, we have seen, Wilfred Owen talking about insensibility of people, glorifying wars. Or if we talk about short stories, Munshi Premchand has written a beautiful short story, Manovrati, wherein the protagonist, she is just sleeping alone on a bench in an open park, and she becomes the talk of the town, of discussion and speculation, because during those days it was looked down upon. So as Shakespeare had said in Hamlet that literature is something that holds a mirror in front of the nature, and here nature means the entire spectrum of human nature. So, but in recent years, we are inundated with digitalization, right? I can talk about the very recent chat GPT, which has taken the world by storm, right? So what, according to you, Nisha, Luthra ji, is the definition and the dimension of literature in the digital world?
So, literature personally for me, as you said, you posed so many examples just now, Mahua. Literature personally for me is like that cloud which gives us rain, like Mohapatra just said. It is that Bargal ka ped, we keep going back to. It is our roots. It is that sigh of relief that we get when we connect to it. So for me, literature is the inception of every core of my being. And that is what literature holds for me. I mean, when we were growing up, we were exposed to Ramayana, Mahabharata, and that's how we were knowing about the roots that we have in this country. So literature is like Bible to me. And that's what I have to say. Because every performance that we put across, that starts from that one word, that story, that narrative, which is written in that particular book.
Nisha ji, do you think it has, changed somehow after digitalization? Do you see any changes in the paradigm, in the dimension of literature? Do you have anything to say about that?
The only thing which can replace a book is another book. So there's nothing which can replace the importance of a book, even now. So, but coexistence and cohabitation is the way to go. What I feel is during Corona times, when we were all locked in our houses, it was only the literature and the digital, the technology which kept us going. We were so connected to the TV, we were so connected to the social media that we came to know that what was happening in the other corner of the world. But that was the time when we explored more. That was the time when we dig in more. That was the time when we connected to ourselves more. I wrote 3 plays. One on the legendary Meena Kumari. I researched a lot at that time. So the digital has definitely changed the way we look at the literature today. But nothing can replace the smell of a new book for me. So you will always find me not scrolling on my phone or Netflix. You will always find me behind the pages of a book. So when I was given this task of putting up a show with 140 students of a very prestigious school in Chandigarh, I went to them and I told them I'm not going to do any classic Western stories. I'm going to do either a folk story or a history. So that's how we did the Mughal era with them. The Babur and Humayun, those were the children of class 9, and they were always, running away from the history class. But when we did the play, they all connected with the history. And that's how they connected to the literature. And then we did not Romeo and Juliet, we did Mirza Sahiba, Sassi Pulnu, Veer Rancha, so that the children of today also come to know about the love legends, the mystic tales that we have in our country. So that's how.
Hi everybody. Thank you, Moha. What a lovely question. And I think the theme of this panel is a very important theme. Before I answer your question, I'll take a step back. So, what does it take to produce literature? Writing, poetry, fiction, novels, what does it take? Samuel Taylor Coleridge said that if there's one art that all of us must master, it has to be reflection, the art of reflection. And Wordsworth, as we all know, said that emotion recollected in tranquility makes you write. So what does it really, in one sentence, of course it's a very complicated, long debate, but in a single sentence, what does it take to write, to produce literature in the first place? It takes the ability to go deep inside you and to kind of calm down and almost, zoom out, go away from external influences. So if that is the question, that's at the heart of good literature, then digitization, right? So I feel, and I'm going to talk about one aspect of digitization, which is social media. Social media has many pluses, many perks, we all know, right? But there's one big problem with social media. All the time we are hooked onto our phones, all the time we are looking at laptop screens. Our own attention span is going down miserably, as of course of our children and the next generation. A study recently done has shown that many children, they just look at their parents staring at phones and the laptop, and their attention span has become less than that of a goldfish. Now that is an alarming thing, right? So if I have to talk about literature in the digital world, I would say that, let's take digitization and social media for its pluses. Let's understand that yes, it's giving us certain benefits. There's a whole lot of content, great content that we can access on social media. But as Chakmak mein aag, Jio Chakmak is Flintstones, for anyone who's not comfortable with Hindi. Jaise dil mein tel hai, Jio Chakmak mein aag, tera sahi tujh mein hai, tu jaag sake to jaag. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Urna. Gopal sir, what's your take on this?
Well, thank you, Moha, for the pertinent question. But I will go in a certain different way in the sense that literature and digital world. Basically, digital world is here to stay, so we cannot ignore that. We have to accept that digital world is there and you have to utilize that space. Initially, what happens when we are in our younger days, if you are a creative writer, you have to depend on publishing in the print. So if you want to publish in some newspaper or some journal, you have to go to the editor's office or you have to write by post, and you have to wait for months and months, and then if you are lucky that you may get your work get selected or maybe a rejection letter, and everything was dependent on whims or the merit of the how the editor chosen you. So there was a real difficult period. But nowadays, think of a young boy and girl. If he or she wants to write anything creative, he can, if he had that urge within, Urna says that if you have that feeling inside, you can write anything in the digital world. And quality is another thing that can come, always it is there, but that you have to carry on with yourself and you have to filter it out. How it will do, it is up to the individual. But I am talking about the digital space, which is huge, enormous. And a few days back we were in some other festival where the topic was this, that digital space. It's enormous and there is a huge plus about this, that we can, this freedom is there, that we can write anything of our, what we want to choose it. So that is definitely a big plus. But there are some alarming signs which you have already told about Jagdev, that artificial intelligence, where even in US and UK, they are planning that how the education system will be there, they have to reform it. Because whatever you want to give any problem to the students, that artificial intelligence doesn't bother about algorithm. It takes a huge data analytics and it can produce anything which you want. And these are very, very standard, which professors and teachers they are analyzing that they are very, very good, as perfect as anything else. And even if for a writing poetry, it's very difficult. If somebody doesn't know poetry, but he can produce a beautiful poem. You have to give some keyword or key source, and it will produce. So it can dig from many different writings, and it can pick up the best thing. So it is an alarm, but those things when technology develops and when there is some innovation is there, so these we have to take on ourselves and we have to move on. But one thing is that you have to be in the digital world, and literature is, as everybody knows, that it's a very we are talking about that togetherness is there, but we have to accept that the digital world literature will be there, and how the quality, this we have to decide, and it is very simple that if the quality is not there, it will never sustain. So I am sure that digital world, we have to take the positives and move on.
Thank you so much, sir. I'll take it from Gopal, sir. He said that, accessibility is in our fingertips these days. So I would like to ask Dilip, sir, first. Do you think, due to the accessibility, there's an overwhelming accessibility of literature on the net. So do you think it has kind of, tapered the quality of literature in these days?
Well, I would, before I answer the question, I would like to only bring about one point, that it's not the literature or impact on literature that's really important as far as the digital world is concerned. Digital world has got impact on our lives or in almost every dimension. Now let's identify who are the people in the space of literature, who are the so-called stakeholders in literature space. Who are they? There is a writing community and there is a reading community. In between, of course, the critics and the scholars are there. So they have a different role to play. The writers are basically creating. The readers, they are getting the benefit out of that. And the critics and the research scholars, they have a much deeper job to do as far as the literature is concerned. So now your searchability, what you just mentioned, I would just connect with this. As far as the activities are concerned, see, creating what the writers do, what the poets do, by any artificial intelligence or by any such digital, robo or bot, is a very faraway question. It's not going to happen. Basically because there are three things which all of us do, we may or may not admit. One is human mind can bend ideas, human mind can break ideas, and human mind can blend ideas. These three things all of us are doing. When you are writing, actually, it's not something impromptu coming and some great trigger happens and due to some great God's grace, something comes out. No, all of us have gone through that. We really work on it. And these three things are happening all the time because you are creating something. The bots or even any program or what has been tried in 2017, there is one gentleman called Gopal. He wanted to write a book by the neural networks. So what he did, he traveled from New York to New Orleans, and what he has with him, he had a car, he had a GPS, he had a microphone, he had a camera, and one clock, digital clock. He put all the inputs together, fed it to the neural network, came out with a book called The Road. And that road was fine as far as certain narratives are concerned. But when it was compared with an author who had written a similar book, it was no. Now, this, so therefore, in the literature scholarship, that is when people are doing research, when people are doing criticism, for them, this accessibility is of immense use. Because they will be at the just tip of a finger, they can go to almost anything, any writer, they can see other analysis, other researchers from other researchers, Everything is there. So the data mining, what they're going to do, is really going to make things totally different and accelerate things. It will give them a vast, area to play around, and the quality of the production that will come out of that, the research, will be much richer. What never used to happen in the olden days when people have to struggle to get those kind of things. So this accessibility is definitely a boon as far as the researchers are concerned. I will stop it here.
Thank you so much, sir. JP Jagdev, sir, please. The same question, if you can throw your
I will go for this title itself, Literature in the Digital World. If we replace the word digital, let's say physical or non-physical. We start with the assumption that all literatures existed only in books, which is 600 years old only. The language, human beings started using language 50,000 years back. I'm not wrong, 50,000 years back we started using it. The moment we have an urge to express, literature gets created once we have something to talk about, something to share, something to, leaving it as a permanent document somewhere comes much better to that. So we have got, as soon as the printing press started, we started having libraries, we started having, but earlier to that it was some clay, tablet, it was, but the oral tradition is actually, which is the thin air. Literature existed in thin air in our subconscious, in our practice, in our access, in our incremental transition or evolution of it. So I am just not bothered about digital work. Because digital is just another medium. When printing press got started, the person who did the palm leaf thing thought I am going to lose my job. When typewriter was taken over by word processors, people lost their jobs. But fact is that if you look at literature, what do we mean by literature? Has it not been replaced? It has been. Now, the digital thing that we're talking about, these are all tools, or they're not just about, gadgets like ChatGPT. It can help you to cheat. It will never help you to create something absolutely original. It will help you to cheat because you want some fast blogs to be written for your website to be pushed in a issue. You're not going to produce earth-shattering content which people are going to subscribe for years and years. Using the ChatGPT can produce a Shakespeare and a parallel to Shakespeare kind of show. It is never going to be. It will be one of the cheating devices. That means why the world is so panicky about ChatGPT is that the algorithm which we have set on plagiarism checks, on such things, is going to be so it is going to be a disruptor for the ecosystem for a while. So ChatGPT, you can, because I am half literate, you are a cheat, you can cheat me for a while. But in the digital world, your cheating can be very well, caught or very soon. So we will higher accountability. So plagiarism has happened. Best of the English, what they call the Western classical movies have been copied by our so-called masters who are in the movies. So it's not really going to shake up, but it's going to offer a huge, enormous advantage in terms of access, in terms of improving usage. So looking at the enormity of advantage which is offering, we started this initiative. In fact, in terms of contesting or really taking this whole digital thing as head on, we thought why not ride the digital wave and try to solve the problem of the society, because the current generation is hooked to the digital world and they are disconnected from the books. So why not do something on the digital world so that this will bring them back to the books? So we started this Inside World initiative where the best of these short stories were converted into rich audio books. And believe me, the enormous hits it gets from places like America and Europe, because the people, the expats, the people who have moved out this, they want to get connected. And you see the number of publications which has come up. They're not happening in digital world, they're happening in physical world. How many publishers we had 10, 15 years back? How many publishers we have now? These all are possible. It is positively impacting the ecosystem, which is for a better world. I am fully into digital, ride it as fast as possible, but prevent this from being misguided, but ride this digital world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that optimistic thought. So I'll take from what Urna said a few minutes back that we grew up reading books. Books were a part of integral part of our childhood, and it was also one of the best mode of entertainment for us besides running on the dusty lanes. So we grew up on Huckleberry Finn or Nancy Drew, Famous Five, Secret Seven, so on and so forth. But due to digitalization, we have seen that our children, they are, always, they cling to their iPads or video games, so on and so forth. So I really would like to, I'm very selfish here because I'm a mother, I would like to know from you all, how can we get our children to connect with literature, Nisha?
So for me, it is my daughters like me are also connected to literature, poetry, and theatre, as we have that environment in the house. So it is very important to put them into some kind of creative or performing arts, because that actually connects you to the text again. It actually shifts you back to the text, because if there is no text, there cannot be no script, there cannot be not any play or any film. So everything which is digital has to be on the text first. So how do we now have to do it the other way around, that the kids are on digital? And sometimes in my theatre clubs in schools and universities, when we go there, we tell them, all right, you record yourself and see that are you taking the right pauses? Are you making the sense when you complete your sentence? So we give them a monologue and we tell them to recite their poetry or to say something on the piece of video. That gives them a work, that engages their mind in an activity, but they don't know that they are again getting connected to the literature. So my daughter wrote her first book. It was on the 5 short plays. So she's a playwright at the age of 13 or 14 years. But before that, I told her to read all the possible Hindi playwrights like Mohan Rakesh ji, like Rabindranath's stories, so that she knows that how the characters have to be shaped, how the strength has to come in the story, how the plot has to twist. So she has written some 5 plays which are now in a shape of a book, and it is already launched. And when she found herself, her entire school was following her on Instagram after the book was released. So it was for her the instant validation that got her more hooked to the literature in the end. So we need to find the ways that how our youth is connected to this digital world, and how do we divert them again to the history, to the folk, to the stories, to the fun and the joy of reading or reciting a piece of poetry. My little one, she starts rhyming the words, and I told her, all right, you like rap, so write the poetry and sing it like rap. So she got hooked to that. So it's just that in theatre we have so many fun activities and games that we are going to find out in the workshop, maybe after the panel discussions, that you would know that how unseemingly and how in oblivion you would get connected to your own self when we do these theatrical exercises. That's how we connect children to the literature. Sorry.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to your daughter. Thank you for your insightful thoughts. And I think we have exhausted time, so I'll quickly wrap it up. I think what from the discussion I take that we are living in the times of harmonious coexistence of tradition and modernity, and wherein we must embrace digitization, but we must hold on to our traditional roots. And of course, literature is going to stay forever because its relevance is never ever going to fade away. There is a saying, that earth with, literature is an art, and earth without art, E-A-R-T-H, without A-R-T, art, is E-H. So I'll end this on that note. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone. Thank you all the speakers. Please be on the dais. Thank you Mahua for moderating the session so well. And yes, digital world is a part of us and it's nowhere to go. Let's make the best of whatever we have. I would like to request Mrityunjay Sarangi from Literary Vibes to please grace the dais and felicitate JP Jagdev from Udaygiri Foundation Trust. Can we have a big round of applause? Rest all have been felicitated, so thank you so much for joining us.